You are tuning in to the You Are Loved podcast, where we hope to bring love and kindness to the world.
Welcome to another You Are Loved podcast. Hold on a second. Let me stop that. All right, let me do this over. Welcome to another You Are Loved podcast, where we have the amazing Racquel, who has joined us today. Racquel Weaver. She is a wife, a mom, and the founder of Edit Therapy Group. She specializes in trauma, women's issues, and eye movement desensitization, reprocessing therapy. Wow, I said that right. I'm also an LPC supervisor for clinicians pursuing their license. Her approach to therapy is pretty creative, using art, movement, music, and sometimes a little humor. If creativity isn't your vibe, she's always down for traditional talk therapy. If you want to know more about therapy, you can text, email, or give her a call, and she's definitely rooting for you. So, Racquel has worked with families, children, teens, and adults for the past 23 years. Her areas of expertise include processing and healing from trauma, managing mood symptoms, spectrum disorders, healing in relationships, women issues, stress management, parenting challenges, and adjusting to change. Looking for the right therapist takes courage. It's so important to find someone who's the right fit for you. She's happy to schedule a free 15-minute consultation call and would love to hear from you. So that's fantastic. I know that when I had a therapist, that definitely changed my life, and with past traumas and stuff like that as a child. So that really definitely changed my life. So I'm so thankful for that. So Racquel, what made you decide to get in to doing therapy and so forth?
Gosh, well, I actually did not decide to be a therapist until I had finished my undergraduate degree. So I really didn't want to. My undergraduate degree was actually in communications, and I just wanted to do media stuff, and I had such a fun time. Hi. Hey, Amy. I had such a fun time learning about that. I've worked with kids over the years, and at that time I had no idea that I would be working with kids, but got my degree in media and worked in public relations for a couple years and was getting ready to go to grad school. I think I had like a year break between undergrad and grad school. I was going to do communications. And I said to myself, I think I'll go take a psychology class. Like, kind of in the meantime, we had just got married. We didn't have any kids, and I was hooked. It was called abnormal psychology. I feel like a lot of people take it in undergrad. It was an undergrad class. I just took an extra one after I'd graduated, and I was hooked. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I just figured out, thankfully, I didn't have to go for like another semester before I got into grad school. I just had to take a few classes. And then shortly after, popped into a therapy program. And I've been doing that ever since. So to answer your question, I really had no interest in that growing up. And I just took a psychology class, and I've just been in love with it ever since.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting feedback, and I think that's Amy. I'm gonna have to remove her. Okay. So that was her. Okay. So what is EMDR therapy? What is that?
Okay, so it's EMDR, and it is a mouthful. It's eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. And I'll kind of start by telling you the story. So this lady named Francine Shapiro is the one who created it, and I think it was 1987. And I've heard a couple of different stories. But the one I read recently is she was like going through a park, and just walking through the park, and she was having these really distressing, upsetting thoughts. I don't know about what. And she noticed, like, she saw a butterfly or a bug or something. And she noticed that when her eyes went back and forth while she was thinking about these thoughts, they were less distressing. And she was a therapist. So she said, yeah. So it really was like a happenstance type thing. And she said to herself, well, what if I tried this with my clients? And she did, and it seemed to work. So she actually started teaching it, and they started to use it with veterans, and it worked really well on veterans. Then just regular adults, like civilians, worked for them. And then we started using it with kids, and we found that it even works better on kids because their brains are so flexible.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of the story behind it. The science of it, if I can get a little, is it okay if I get just like a little
Please
bit?
go for it. Yeah.
So the science of it is we have a midline of our body. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like midline exercises and how those sometimes can calm kids down, like tapping and stuff.
Right. That's like with autistic kids when they have like these autistic stuff. Yeah. Like
like
spinner
stimming
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, often when autistic kids are stimming, they will not know what they're doing, but they'll kind of rock, they'll go back and forth and stim across the midline of their body, and it calms them down, and they don't even know that that's what they're doing. Like sometimes you'll see their hands do things. But you've got the midline of your body, and all the way through your body runs this thing called the vagus nerve. We like to call it the Las Vegas nerve. And it's called the vagus nerve. It's the biggest nerve in your body. It goes all the way through. And anytime you're doing an exercise over the midline of your body, it helps you to process things a little bit easier. And it sort of helps traumatic things to be less distressing. So it's almost as if it kind of desensitizes those traumatic events. So say you are in a horrible car accident. You have this little almond-shaped thing in your brain. It's called the amygdala. And you also have the hippocampus. This is the nerdy part. They're really close to each other in the brain. If you have like a moderately stressful event happen, most of the time your amygdala gets that information first. It processes it, it throws it, files it into the hippocampus. If it's extremely distressing, it gets stuck in the amygdala and it never goes to the hippocampus. So now you didn't process that correctly. And now, say you had a horrible car accident, anytime you drive by that street or hear a noise or like a smell that reminds you of that car accident, it sends you into an absolute panic attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so how does someone get cured or help to move past that?
So we do EMDR, and there are lots of different ways to process trauma. We've just found that EMDR is one of the best practices, and there's just been so much research on it, and it's just it's my favorite personally. But EMDR is kind of a long process. We really, with the client, we want to make sure that they're very stable. So, if you've got a client that has been right out of the hospital, we want to work on them for a really long time. And I mean like a psychiatric hospital. We want to work with them for a really long time to make sure that they've got really good coping skills. That's called resourcing. And we work with them on that for a really long time to make sure they're safe. And then we go into that trauma, we reprocess it, and we're going to do it. There's lots of different ways. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the little buzzies, like you can hold buzzies in your hands.
Have you heard of that, Amy? No, she hasn't.
So there's these buzzies that you can hold in your hands, and they go across the midline of your brain. Kids love the buzzies. Sometimes they'll put them in their shoes. I think that's really cute. We also have a light bar, and you can watch the light go back and forth. In the old days, Francine and her little crew, they just did fingers. And I was actually trained on just the fingers back and forth, which kind of sounds a little like hypnosis, but it's not, because you're completely awake. Your eyes go back and forth. Some kids really like tapping across the body. And then we also have headphones. I have actually not used the headphones on a client yet, but there's like a sound that goes back and forth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but it's engaging the midline of the brain, while you reprocess the trauma. And there's like a whole process that we go through to teach them how to reprocess it, and the therapist guides them through it.
Oh, that's amazing. So now, have you written any books, or like, do you have any programs? Do you do some stuff out in addition to, besides being an amazing TikTok influencer and your therapy? And so have you written any books at all or anything like that? Or are you writing one?
Never written a book. And I've learned to not say that I will never do something, because the minute I say, because I said I'd never work with kids, and here I am like working with kids for all these years and loving it so much and wondering why I said I would never do that. I cannot imagine myself writing a book. Oh, that sounds like grad school all over again, writing this writing this monstrous paper. So no, I've never written a book. I'm definitely not thinking about that. But something that is new that I'm doing is, for the first time in 23 years, I have my own private practice now.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. I just signed the lease today on my cute little teeny tiny office. Yeah. So that's fun. I have always been in community mental health. I've always been in schools. Always working with kids. And this is really the first time that I've ever had like my own true business.
Now, were you like a guidance counselor at schools, or what was it?
So there are guidance counselors in most of our schools.
Yeah.
And are you guys in North Carolina?
No, I'm in South Florida right now. That's where Amy is. And then I live in Georgia, Atlanta.
Oh my gosh, I'm from Atlanta. Have we never talked about that?
I don't think so. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I lived there till I was about 18. So in the schools,
which was like the other day.
Oh my gosh. I love it when people say that. In the schools in Oklahoma, we actually have licensed therapists. So we have our guidance counselors, but we also have licensed therapists in the schools. So that way kids can actually get therapy at the school. So it's almost like, you know, how they might go to PE or they might go to art. Some kids just have an extra class that's therapy that they just go to by themselves. And some of them go to group therapy. And so that's actually built into the schools in Oklahoma.
Wow, that's amazing. That would be great if they did something like that, like, you know, here in South Florida or in Georgia, or, you know, as well. That would have been great. So,
because
it's
really just a part of their education. And there's not, I'm sure there is still some stigma, but most of the time in most of the schools that I've worked in, the kids just think of therapy as just something that you do, just another thing that you do.
Yeah. And have you seen like kids' lives turned around? Like, what's probably like a great like overcoming story or something? I know you can't say specifics or a person's name or whatever, but just like generalization, or just where you like where they were kind of at, and then like where their highest point was after.
Yeah. So I've been lucky enough to be able to see, because I've been doing this for 23 years, be able to see some kids like start with them when they're 4 and still know about them by the time they graduate high school. So a story that I can think of, oh gosh, and I want to make sure not to give too many details, but I had a client once who in and out of foster care, terrible home life, so much abuse. And before I learned EMDR, one way that I would process trauma with kids is we would write. And this kid would write and write and write and write. And every session we'd get together and this kid would say, hey, you got to read this new chapter that I wrote. And it was kind of fictional, but it was also a way that they process their trauma.
Yeah.
So this kid has gone on and has written several books and is in grad school and has a family, and I've kept up with them all this time. And, you know, back then I never thought, oh, this will turn into books, but It
Yeah.
has. So it's
That's
pretty
great. What a
cool.
blessing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then just being able to overcome like that trauma, there's so much relation there that other individuals, children and stuff like that, that could um compare themselves to, and how they were able to overcome and create this amazing life afterwards, even after going through all of that. I think that's, wow, what a blessing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Most kids do really well. Now I have had a few that go straight to jail.
Yeah.
So that happens too. You do the best you can. You give it
So
your best, and but their story's not over yet either. I mean, I could hear from them years from now and they're out of jail and doing great.
yeah. Yeah. So I think Amy had a question. We can't hear you, Amy.
We see your mouth moving,
Yeah.
but we don't
Sorry.
hear you. That's okay. Oh, that's weird because she's off mute.
Yeah, I know, but it's because you're connected to your car and you need to remove yourself off your car, like I suggested earlier. I know she's like, so we can't
She's
hear
trying
you
so
still.
hard.
We still can't hear you, Amy.
I wonder if you can type it in the chat.
Yeah, can you type it in the chat, Amy? Or just text it to me and then I can. Yeah, she's telling me to be quiet. Okay. All right, great.
She said.
So Amy and I have known each other for over 30 something years, so we're pretty much like sisters.
Yeah. Yeah, I could tell you guys know each other really well.
So so some of the stuff that you had spoken about was in regards to like having fun with your having fun with the therapy and so forth. Okay, let's see here. Sorry. Okay. You said music and sometimes a little humor. So what does that mean, like using like humor and stuff like that within what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I started out with little kids and even some high schoolers that absolutely did not want to be there. And also, so first of all, they're kids. They want to have fun. I find that with kids, you got to have a lot of fun and you got to sneak the therapy in, especially if they're older kids that are like, this is wild. I'm not going to come in here and talk about my feelings. And there actually are a lot of families that maybe the kid gets in trouble at school. The family doesn't really want them telling a lot. So already they're really nervous to go to a therapist. Sometimes they think of us as child protective services, and they've had really poor experiences with other state workers, just whoever has been in and out of the home. And, it's not personal at all. They just don't want to tell their business.
Yeah.
Really start with fun. And with most kids, the first thing I say is, all right, what's on your For You page? What are you watching on TikTok? What is on your playlist?
Yeah.
Let's look at some of these songs. What are your favorite things? And I just find that fun is the best way to start, because that's what's going to get them engaged.
Yeah. I remember like over Christmas and stuff like that, I had started watching a lot of those sappy romance movies and all that stuff. And then just from like binging on that, I got like super depressed because because I was single at the time and not married and like 51. And I was like, oh, and then I was talking to Amy and I was like, well, I don't know why I'm so sad. I was like, well, I have been watching all these
the TV off.
Yeah, that's what I do with the crime documentaries. Like, why am I scared of everything? Oh, I go to sleep watching crime documentaries.
Yeah, I had to like cut back on that too because I used to watch a lot of that. So go for it, Amy.
So, hi. I wanted to talk to you about the EMDR because I wanted to get my son into it. He's outside of I kicked him out of the car so I could talk to you and
you could talk about him.
Yeah, because it's not, there's some of the things that he doesn't know. Like,
Yeah.
he's adopted, and he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know that yet. But his biological mother, she did drugs with him while she was pregnant, and he was born with it in his system. And
Yeah.
when he was born, he didn't breathe on his own for like the first 30 minutes, and then
Wow.
he was very, I don't want to say colicky because that's not it, but he had this like deep cough that just, I had to change his formula. I had to like really pay attention
Mm-hmm.
to that, and like I was constantly getting him checked and whatever. And because he was a child of the state, I had to follow their well visit,
Mm-hmm.
um, well visits and their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And this
Mm-hmm.
particular well visit, I think he got like five well visits, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them he had an effect. It affected him,
Oh,
and he
yeah.
was screaming, 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 and wouldn't stop, and it was like ear piercing. And I got him
Mm-hmm.
home, and he was still screaming, and then like all I could think of was my friend who her daughter got the DTaP, and she
Mm-hmm.
became unresponsive, and she brought her back, but that's all I could think of. It was just like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, what did I
You were
do?
terrified. Yeah.
Very. And from that night on, he was just a little tiny baby. It was night terrors. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like
Oh.
all night, every night. And I had
Mm-hmm.
never been so sleep deprived in my life. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
PTSD from it. Like anytime he'd make
Mm-hmm.
any kind of noise, I was like, oh my God,
You were so
Um,
scared. Yeah.
yeah, but the thing with that was like I was the one that had to get up with him, and take him outside. Like I literally, the only thing I could do was take him outside and walk up and down the street in the cold and the rain and like mosquitoes, like all the temperatures,
Mm-hmm.
and we did that for a really long time. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, he slept with me, he still sleeps with me. He's 10.
Mm-hmm.
But like just the other night he started to have one, and I was just like, hey, okay, because he's
Mm-hmm.
getting big. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get him in EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
um I thought I found a therapist that was trained in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was through like Sunshine, the insurance company,
Mm-hmm.
the state insurance. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, yeah, I know how to do that. I'm trained in that. And then in talking to him, he didn't even really know what it was. And I was like, I had to explain it
Mm-hmm.
to him. And I'm like, why do I have to explain this to you? But
Yeah.
he and I don't typically see eye to eye. He wants me to
Mm-hmm.
medicate him. He's ADHD and he wants me to medicate him. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. That's
Yeah.
just putting a Band-Aid on it. That's just, you know,
Yeah.
covering up symptoms. Like I want to find the
Mm-hmm.
core and fix that,
Mm-hmm.
not cover up and
Yeah.
give him chase a dopamine high for the rest of his life. So,
Mm-hmm.
I said he needs to learn how to regulate,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to teach him. So, he and
Mm-hmm.
I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I want to go a
Mm-hmm.
different route with him, but he has, a bit of a temper, or he starts to kind of act out when he wants attention, or, he's got really
Mm-hmm.
big feelings and all the things. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, dealing
Yeah.
with that. And his therapist is like, well, he didn't go through trauma. And I'm like, well, he kind of did,
Mm, yeah. I much respect to your therapist, but I would say different. Even as babies can go through medical trauma. They can go through birth
Mhm.
trauma, and that changes the brain. It changes the
Right.
brain. The thing about EMDR is that's hard is that there's not a lot of people trained in EMDR.
Right.
And often when they are, they don't take the state insurance because EMDR therapists typically cost a bit more, and state insurance just doesn't reimburse well for that.
He has dual insurance. So once,
Oh,
hold on, let me roll it back. I'll roll up my window. Once the adoption was finalized, I put him on our insurance. So we have United, and then he
okay.
also has Sunshine, which is the state
Mm-hmm.
insurance. So he has Sunshine until
Okay.
he's 15.
So that's good.
And the thing I like about them is that everything is pretty much covered, but
Mhm.
you get state care, basically.
You can get state care, but also private insurance therapists will also take your insurance. Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
I forgot what I was going to say to you about that. But yeah, I really want him to just learn to regulate. And
Mhm.
from a little, he's always had really
Mhm.
big feelings. And I'm
Mhm.
like, let's breathe. And I would like take deep breaths. I would sit him in my lap where the back of his head
Mhm.
was on my chest, and I would rock back and forth, and I would like take deep breaths. And it worked for a long time until he like
Yeah.
got mad at me, and he's like, I don't want to breathe, But I
Yeah.
teach
Until they're old enough to say, yeah.
yeah, so we're at that
Yeah.
like where he's old enough. He still goes along with me and does like, hey, let's go to therapy. And he kind of protests a little bit on that because he doesn't think it's working. And I don't either. Like, I don't think
Mhm.
this particular therapist is doing us any justice, like any good. Um, he has changed a lot. He has calmed down a lot. He's not aggressive like he was.
Mhm.
For a little while, he was a little bit aggressive. Like he just didn't know how to process what he was going through. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to find something for him.
Mhm.
I don't
So,
want to put him on medication.
yeah. Yeah. A really good resource is Psychology Today. And
Oh,
I like Psychology Today because you can search by area. I think you can put in keywords like EMDR.
okay.
Um, and you can find a therapist that is licensed in your state and trained in EMDR. Like, I think you can actually put in keywords. You can even put in, like, if you want a female or a male.
Yeah. I took him to Brain Balance and had him
Uh,
assessed. And
mhm,
they did their assessment, and they said that he was stuck in primitive reflex.
mhm. Very
Um,
impulsive.
fight or flight,
Mhm,
they said he's stuck there. And he's got
mhm.
all the check marks, like the Mora, I think, is it Moro? All the check marks under
Mhm.
primitive were marked off for him. It
Yeah.
was really interesting where like the percentages of like
Mhm,
um I can't even think of the words right now, but like body awareness, like that
mhm.
like what
Yeah.
age he's ranking at, it was really
Yeah.
interesting to see.
And it's interesting how the brain can be, kind of advanced in some areas and then behind in other areas for age.
Right.
Um, but even if you don't have an EMDR therapist, a therapist that can do somatic type stuff with him and really help him to become more aware of his body, like what triggers me, what does my body start to feel like when I get upset? How can I notice that and then start doing one or two little things to calm down? Even
Right.
somatic work would be really helpful.
Somatic work would be good for a lot of people.
It's good for me. It's why I do yoga.
I think it would be
Like,
really good for me too.
yeah, it's what keeps me sane, just
Mhm.
movement in general.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, search in Psychology Today. And, some therapists just aren't good fits. Like,
Right.
I've had people that I haven't been a good fit for. I had a kid today who was just like, oh, good grief. This
Yeah.
lady pulling, trying to talk to me. And that's okay. Sometimes it's just not a good fit and you just have to find someone else.
Yeah. He was like, well, you don't want to medicate him. And I was like, no, I don't. And he's like, well, you don't want to spank him either. And I was like, that's not going to work. Like, what? No. I'm not
Yeah.
going to
There's
He
meet
just
aggression
gets
with
more
aggression.
aggressive. If you
Yeah.
spank
More
him or something like
angry.
that, he gets more aggressive.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that
We're not here for
I mean,
that.
it worked with me as a kid, but it doesn't work with him.
Not.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, especially with kids that are impulsive and have had a history of,
Right.
there were drugs in utero. Um, Spanking is just, I mean, I really, there's so much research that says that it really just doesn't work on most kids. There are so many
Yeah.
other things that you can do,
Right.
So,
sure.
Okay. So thanks, Raquel, for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so when we initially did like our intro call, I know that we were gonna talk about a few things. I cannot remember everything. So I thought there was like a program or something that you were putting together or something like that. I know you were opening up your new office.
That might have been it.
And
Yeah.
and then I know that so like let's just talk about can we chat about your TikTok for a second?
Yeah,
That'd be okay.
sure.
How did you get involved in that? Like how did you end up becoming an influencer? Like what yeah, I mean you're great and but
Thanks.
what got you into doing that? I mean cuz that's probably something fun that you do. I'm sure you let us know, but in
It's
comparison
so
to like
fun.
all the lives that you're changing and these two different
Aw.
spectrums, you know?
Gosh, so actually, I'm pretty new to TikTok. I had been on Instagram. I started over there and a little bit of Facebook stuff for years and years. And I was doing, gosh, what all did I do over there? I would do reels. Instagram would pay me a little bit for views on my reels, and then just like a few little brand deals. It was mostly like stuff that was non-therapy, like fashion. I actually competed in bikini competitions for a long time. This is my first year not competing. So I would do fitness and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then my Instagram got hacked in like September and all that work down the drain. So I tried to
And they
make another
couldn't get it back
one.
for you, huh?
No. And I mean, I think I tried a few times, but basically what happened is the Bitcoin people got in there and they had been trying to hack me for years, and I was like, but they finally got me. So I knew
Yeah.
they were probably going to get me eventually. And so I was like, you know what? I have this small little TikTok account. I said, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to do that. And I just kept on doing my little fashion things and fitness, and slowly it's turned. I did TikTok shop for a while. That was fun. It was like coffee money, but now I just really am enjoying focusing on therapy videos. I will get on and just like ask a question. Like I think yesterday we were talking about why it's so important to pay attention to your body and where are you feeling things in your body, because that's how you really process it. Like stop trying to analyze your feelings in your head and where are you feeling it in your body. And I just ask questions and people chime in, and then I'll take their answers and ask another question. And we just talk about therapy every day.
Do you ever do lives on there?
I have done lives before. So
Okay.
I like lives. The only thing about lives that makes me nervous is really my audience. I want it to be women. I do not care to entertain the men.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
men, like,
Yeah.
they pop in on your lives because my TikTok
It's so
is
annoying.
not. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, you just made that weird comment and now I have to block you. And all the girls are going to see that you did that. So I haven't done lives in a while for that reason.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done like a couple of lives, every once in a while because I'm not as consistent as I should be on there. And then I get like these guys from across the other side of the world or whatever that are like, and
Yeah.
it's like totally, and like, I can't even understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
And like, I was so naive to it that I popped them on like once or twice. So I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I get this person off? Like,
Like you accidentally let them in the live.
like I didn't realize like I
Yes.
was like, oh, was this person wants to join? But I didn't realize that they were like wanting to do some stupid game competition. And I was like, dude, I'm sitting here talking about life for like inspiration or something that's not even has nothing to do with games. And do I look like I want to like do a duo TikTok? You know what I mean? I thought maybe the person had a question or something. I didn't know.
You just
I was like,
because it'll ask you, do you want them to let you join? And if you don't know what's going to happen, you'll click the button and all of a sudden
you're like,
there's a person there and then you can't get them out.
Yeah, you're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
You've invaded my life. Go away.
Yeah. It's really, live is just, And a lot of therapists will get on there and they'll answer questions, but I just don't have the tolerance for weirdo questions. Like, I'm going to make a face. I'm not going to be nice.
Yeah.
My son's going to see it and get on there and start yelling at people. We're not having that.
Yeah. No. How old is your son?
He just turned 17 yesterday.
Wow.
And then I have a daughter who's 19.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been married it'll be 25 years next January. And yeah.
Wow. So have you, like, as you've gone through and became a therapist and did all this stuff, and all the stuff that you learned, did it help you with any, like, because we all have past traumas. So did it help you, like, learning all this, learn how to process your own stuff? And then how do you think knowing this learning everything helped you with having such a long lasting marriage?
I would say that being a therapist definitely, first of all, I feel like every therapist should be in therapy. And anyone that I supervise, I will say, ma'am, part of this is you need to be in therapy. And there's no excuse to not be in therapy, because at least with our company and a lot of companies, there's an EAP, an employee assistance program, and you can get up to like 6 sessions for free. And most of the time more, because most of the time the therapist will write a letter and say, hey, they need more. So I feel like every therapist should be in therapy. I will say that if I had, which I do come from some trauma, if I had like a real trigger point, clients are going to bring that out. Like maybe I have a session and the kid is very similar to something I've been through. My stomach will hurt during and after session. So I started in therapy a long time ago, and just being in therapy as a therapist has helped so much. But also, I did EMDR myself before I became trained. Yes. So, that was incredibly helpful. I had gotten to the point where there were just some things. And I remember a particular day, a coworker, one of my closest coworkers, was like, girl, you've got to do EMDR, because something had happened in a session. And I was like over my desk with my stomach hurting. She was like, if you've got to take 2 weeks off, whatever, but like, this is going to start to impact your practice if you don't process through this. So, I wouldn't say that being a therapist has helped me really process anything, but it's definitely brought things out that I've chosen to go do the work on. And as far as marriage goes, we've had the same therapist for our family for probably 12 years now.
Oh, wow.
And so I've done a lot of individual with her. I did EMDR with her. My daughter has seen her individually. We've done marriage counseling with her. I would definitely say that she saved our marriage a few times. No, we did the work, but if she hadn't been there, we would have been in real trouble. But yeah, and then therapy has just been a part of something that our family does. Like, my son goes every other week. He hasn't had anything crazy happen, but it's just a part of what our family does. They talk about sports. I'll tell you what, though, if something crazy does happen, he will have a relationship with that therapist. And if he can't come to us, he can go to him. Yeah. So I think it's so important, and really for kids should just be a part of their education.
Yeah. 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 I agree with that, because, I probably, if I had gone to therapy as like a teenager and stuff like that, my life would probably had been better sooner than later on in life. You know what I'm saying? Where I had to like grow out of the immaturity and learn how to process stuff and wait till I was in my 40s to go to therapy, Yeah. I went to a therapist once when I was like in my early 20s. And then I was like, I don't even understand the point of this. It's so stupid. But I think I just wasn't relating to the guy. I just wasn't comfortable. I think I had a guy therapist, but when I was in my 40s, I was like sleep exhaustion, not sleeping.
Yeah.
I'd be awake till 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I just wouldn't be able to go to work because I'd be exhausted from being up all night, and I'd have to call out, and like, I'm not able to make it in today. I just have not slept all night.
It was really impacting your life.
It was really impacting my life. Yeah. So then, so with that, and then, I went to see a therapist, and I saw her for 2 years, and that really changed my life. So
yeah,
I went from every week to every other week to once a month.
Yeah. Well, and also social media definitely has like its negative sides, but I will say, since social media has been a thing for those that cannot afford therapy, that don't have access to therapy, because it's not accessible to everyone. There is so much on social media. There are therapists out there. I'm one of them, just putting free content out every day. They're talking about EMDR. They're on TikTok talking about somatic stuff. They're talking about regulating their emotions. If you can't go to therapy, you can get on social media for free and learn so much.
Right. Okay. Okay. Amy's killing me.
I see her.
Yeah.
I see her name.
Amy, just say bye.
I was texting her. I was like, I have to drive home, so I wanted to go backstage, but I wanted to say bye and thank you. But I will be listening to the rest of this.
Okay, it's so nice to meet you, Amy.
Nice meeting you too.
Love you, Amy.
Bye.
All right, here
I
we
love
go.
you,
Bye.
bye.
So she's the one that helps build out the You Are Loved brand. And that was one of the things when I was a kid, is I used to always be like, I'd always have to say before I hung up with my mom, like, I love you, or my dad, really pretty much with my mom for the most part. And then like, if I was being a brat and just hung up on her, I'd have to call her back. I'd be like, bye. And then, as a teen, we're snotty brats, And I'd have to call her right back, because I would just have this overwhelming anxiety that I had to make sure that I just told her I loved her before we hung up the phone.
Yeah.
Because you just never know if something is going to happen. And I would hate for that to be the last thing.
Yeah.
So, so that's part of our thing. So with her and I, because I know I was being a little snarky. Just so
you guys just have a really comfortable relationship.
Yeah. And so I just make sure that I tell her I love her before I
that's super sweet.
Yeah. So me and like, I've trained her and like a few my other closest friends to do that.
Yeah. Not
that that's a bad training. So
no, it's a good thing.
So, but that's exciting. So, do you work with just people in Oklahoma? You do therapy, like telehealth. So do you work with people in other states? Like, what's your practice look like with that?
So I'm just licensed in Oklahoma. So right now I'm doing a couple of things. I'm kind of in a transition period. I have a contract with a school. It's an alternative school in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. It's kind of a country town, although I live in Tulsa. But the school in Sand Springs is mainly older teenagers. So I would say like, I have a few freshmen, but like 10th grade through up to 20 years old. And they just had a really hard time at the traditional high school. So then they're in the alternative school for lots of different reasons. So I'm actually finishing out my contract with them this year. My last day will be June 30th. At night, I do some private practice, mostly telehealth right now on weeknights and Saturday. Actually, just one weeknight because I got to go to yoga. So one weeknight and then Saturdays. And then in June, when my contract's up with the school, I'll completely switch over to private practice and mainly EMDR. And most of my work in private is with adults right now. I do have a couple kids that I meet on telehealth. But yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. And I hope to expand. My family is in Atlanta. So the goal is really to be a lot more mobile. My parents are late 70s, 80s. So being mobile, being able to, I probably will go ahead and get licensed. Yeah. I mean, you want to be able to be mobile to get there quickly.
100%.
Yeah, so I think I probably will look at maybe licensure in Georgia because we eventually will go home. We'll eventually go back to the coast. My
Mm-hmm.
husband's from there as well. But right now I'm just seeing under my Oklahoma license, but I'm pretty sure I'll do multi-state. It's not too terribly hard. Most
Yeah.
states to have cross licenses.
Are you able to, if it's telehealth, are you able to, and they're paying you cash, are you able to see somebody in another state or no? No.
No, I'm not, just because I could be anywhere. I could be on an island somewhere, but the client has to be in Oklahoma because I'm licensed in Oklahoma.
Got
It's
you.
kind of like like the way medical license
Yeah.
works. We're licensed by the state.
Yeah.
So you can have more than one license and just keep up with that multi-state.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're actually licensed in our state. In fact, I was first licensed in South Carolina, and this was way back in the day, but it took like 6 to 8 weeks to get relicensed in Oklahoma. So it's a lot easier now, but it's just a state license.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So if you end up being able to be in like a few different states, back in South Carolina again,
Mhm.
Florida, Georgia,
Yeah.
and Oklahoma or whatever, then you can get clients from all over and do telehealth from everywhere, Go
Yeah.
sit in
And
like a bathroom somewhere in a bungalow, like, in Costa
mhm.
Rica.
Gosh, I think that would be so fun to just be able to travel and
Yeah.
travel. I've never been much of a traveler, but I think it would be fun to travel more and maybe, be halftime at the beach. And we'll probably have a home in Oklahoma. We've been here for close to 20 years. It's our kids' home, but all of our family's back south. So
Yeah. My godson lives in Muskogee, Oklahoma. So
Muskogee.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's like, gosh, I go there every year to get my eyebrows done. It's like 45 minutes from here.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 30 now, but he started himself a little family over there. So, but I get it. My
Aw.
parents are in their late 70s, and I
Mhm,
travel to Florida and Alabama for both my parents as
mhm,
well. And I'm from South Florida. So my mom and I have a house here. So I come
mhm.
back often to
Yeah.
see my friends and my family and stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. So if you're in Oklahoma and you want to be able to hire you want to do EMDR and all the other
Mhm.
amazing therapy that you have, can you just let people know how they can find you? And
Mhm.
then if you want them to follow you on TikTok or Facebook or whatever,
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah. So, the easiest way probably to find me is on Psychology Today. You could just type in my name, Racquel Weaver, Racquel Weaver, um, and I'll pop up. And then I think on my TikTok, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, I think that so the company that handles like all of my insurance and billing and stuff like that, they're called Headway, and they
Mm-hmm.
are in the link. Let's see. Yeah. There's actually a link. It says Oklahoma therapist, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's actually a link.
Yeah, that takes you to the Headway.
Takes you to
Your practice
Headway.
powered by Headway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can, if you're a therapist, you can actually book a consult with Headway, and they teach you how to do private practice. They're pretty cool. They've been incredibly helpful to me. If you are a client, you can go into Headway, and they're just like Psychology Today. You can search names, you can search specialties, and look for a right therapist for you.
Okay, that's awesome. And can I give out your TikTok handle?
For sure.
It's at Racquel, Racquel. It'll all be in the show notes as well. _ Kinz, KINZZZZ, 4 Z's.
Yes, 4
Racquel
Z's.
_ Kinz.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Is there like do you have like a inspirational quote or just like your favorite like message or closeout message or
Mhm.
anything like that you say? I would love for you to like
Mhm.
share that if you do.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one of my favorite things, and this is just like for parents, because I've worked with parents and kids. One of my favorite things to tell parents is probably the greatest gift that you can, well, not the greatest gift. One of the greatest gifts that you can give your children is going to therapy yourself, working out yourself, being able to regulate your own emotions as you parent them. That's one of my favorite things to tell parents. And I would say that my favorite quote, I have it on my website. I'm just going to read it. It's not long, but it's a Brene Brown quote. Do you know Brene Brown?
I've heard of her. Right. Yeah.
I love her books. So this is just connection is why we're here. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. Brene Brown. She studies shame, the science of shame, and vulnerability and human connection. And she just, if you don't want to read a book, she has some really good talks. There's actually like a Netflix special where she does a talk.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I love
definitely.
her.
Yes, I have her book. I was like, that sounds familiar. I have her book, Daring Greatly.
Very good one.
Audible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I know that name sounds familiar. And I know I've downloaded one of her Audible books before. Yeah. So that's awesome. Yeah. I've heard a lot of really great things about her. Well, that's awesome, Racquel. I'm going to have your bio and your links and stuff like that in the description. So unfortunately, everyone, as amazing as she is, if you're not in Oklahoma, you cannot go to her as a therapist for now. But you better follow her because I'm sure she'll announce it on her TikTok.
Yeah. And I'll put resources and stuff on my TikTok. I think it's mainly going to be therapy stuff. I'm kind of over fashion. I don't know. We might throw some of that in because that's fun, but just lots of talk about therapy and resources. And if you don't have access to therapy, oh my gosh, come over to my TikTok. We're going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff.
Awesome. Glad that you're kind of incorporating stuff that you love. So just for one little plug, like, how do you like our planner? Like, have you, honestly, just be honest, have you been able to use it at all? Have you?
Hold, please. Okay. Let me get it.
All right.
Yes. I carry it everywhere I go. And look at this thing. Okay. So like, oh my God, I don't want to like, there's names on it, so I don't want to like.
Yeah, you can't do that,
but I mean, I just like fill up. This has helped me so much with like a transitional time in my life because, you know, I've got clients on a schedule over here and I've got clients on a schedule over here because I'm doing two different things. And this has like helped me. So, I mean, I'm just all in it.
Yeah.
So much with.
Well, good. I'm really glad. Do you ever read the quotes and stuff up at the top that we have? Have you ever implemented anything up there or?
Let's see. What have I?
I'm actually just curious because I like to know if like, you know, because you're like our ideal like market and stuff like that in regards to the type of person that is our, like when we vision this, an entrepreneur, someone who is in self-development, someone who's into fitness, someone who's a mom, and the age range, all of that stuff. So, and we're, you know, when we put out our next one, we just want to make sure that we are enhancing it and making it better, just adding more value. So I was just curious. So.
Yeah, definitely. So I do remember reading this one about more family time, and we've really been making an effort for that. Another thing that I really love is at the beginning of every month, there is, obviously I did not write much for March, but there's the wellness log. That's really important to me.
Yeah.
I go crazy if I don't make it to at least hot yoga, or at least walk, but even just like your budget, food, bills, expenses, all of that, reflections. So good.
Yeah, I was just curious. I was just curious to know if some of it, like with like some of the quotes and stuff like that we put up at the top. But yeah, so okay, shameless plug. But I was just really curious. I appreciate that. I love the bigger one too. I had the smaller one, and I was starting to use it, but then I was like, and I made Amy create a smaller one because for like a Hallmark that we were dealing with.
Yeah. Well, I use that one too. I just use that for more like personal stuff, and this goes everywhere with me in my backpack.
Yeah.
I would honestly, like, I would have no idea. I just have to write it down. I mean, my clients are on my calendar, but I have to write them down. It just makes me feel better.
Yeah. All right, Racquel, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
I will
for
let you know
having
as soon as
me.
this goes out, and it'll be
Okay.
streamed on all the platforms. So
Awesome.
okay. All right. Thanks, Racquel.
So good to talk to you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Same here. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for another episode of You Are Loved. We are actually doing a 10-minute refresh your life and refresh your time, like get your time back, and then you'll be able to refresh your life. And it's just a 10 minutes. So if you go to youarelovedplanner.com, you'll be able to get that. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of You Are Loved. If you have any topic ideas or would like to be a guest on the show, please hit us up on Instagram at youareloved.store.